Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone.
Authorities in Lee County, Florida say that a 43-year-old man was recently arrested following a strange and dangerous incident in which he allegedly stole a construction worker's vehicle, attempted to run him over, and then took off his clothes inside a porta potty while trying to hide from police. According to an arrest affidavit, officers responded to a call about a stolen vehicle at a construction site around 4:15 p.m. on October 27th. A worker there told police that the suspect, later identified as Joshua Molnix, had wandered onto private property from a nearby beach wearing only sweatpants. When told to leave, Molnix refused and tried to break into a shed before spotting the worker's unlocked Nissan SUV with keys inside. Police say Molnix started the car and aggressively accelerated toward the worker, forcing him to jump out of the way. Molnix then drove through a gate, causing approximately $4,000 in property damage before fleeing onto the street. A short time later, a second witness called 911 to report a man, quote, appearing to be on drugs, who matched Molnix's description. The caller said the man had parked the stolen SUV at another property and sprinted into a nearby porta potty. When officers arrived, Molnix allegedly burst out from inside the portable toilet holding 2 wooden stakes and ran off, now completely naked. Officers chased him and eventually subdued him with a taser before taking him into custody. Molnix was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon without intent to kill, grand theft of a motor vehicle, criminal mischief, and leaving the scene of a crash. He was later released on bail on November 4th, and his arraignment is scheduled for December 8th.
A 36-year-old Louisiana man has been arrested this week after police say he carried out an unusual bank robbery where he faked a disability in order to distract employees and witnesses at the scene, only to sprint away with a bunch of stolen cash. The robbery happened shortly before 4 p.m. on Friday, November 7th at a Fidelity Bank branch in Slidell, just outside of New Orleans. Surveillance footage left officers stunned. The suspect, later identified as 36-year-old Byron Watson, shuffled into the bank wearing a gray tracksuit, an oversized hat, sunglasses, a medical mask, and a neck brace. He leaned heavily on a cane that appeared too short for his height and exaggerated a limp, walking without bending one of his legs. Once inside, Watson waited for other customers to leave. He then approached a teller, slid her a note, and announced the robbery out loud. The teller placed an undisclosed amount of cash on the counter, which Watson scooped into a fanny pack before suddenly running out the door. Of course, at this point, the limp instantly vanished. Outside surveillance video showed Watson sprinting away from the bank and disappearing into a nearby neighborhood. Police attempted to track him with a canine unit, but believe he escaped the area in a vehicle. The bizarre ruse attracted widespread attention online, with viewers joking the robber deserved an Academy Award for the performance. On Wednesday, November 12th, Watson was arrested after a multi-agency manhunt involving the Slidell Police Department, FBI, Louisiana State Police, and New Orleans Police Department. He was found barricaded inside a home in New Orleans' Holly Grove neighborhood, but was taken into custody peacefully. Police say that at the time of his arrest, Watson was already serving 20 years of federal probation for a previous bank robbery. However, it appears that incident was less noteworthy. Authorities described the fake limp in last week's robbery as a deliberate tactic to distract employees and witnesses. Speaking about the case, Slidell Police Chief Daniel Susanow stated, quote, "Watching the suspect walk out of the house, there was no limp at all. Obviously, that was all orchestrated." The department spokesperson told reporters that Watson's strange appearance was immediately suspicious, telling reporters, quote, "He walked in as a red flag, just out of pure appearance. Everything he was dressed in, from the hat to the neck brace to the cane to the multiple layers of clothing. As an employee of a financial institution, somebody comes in where you can barely make out their identity. That's a red flag." Police did not disclose how much money was stolen, but said it was, quote, "not enough to be worth this." Watson faces charges of armed robbery, and officials are still determining whether he will face federal or state prosecution. The investigation remains ongoing.
A retired Ohio State University professor has been charged with brutally killing his wife this week after police say he was the victim of an embarrassing online extortion scheme, and he told them that he felt the murder was his only way out. According to investigators, 76-year-old James Hill admitted to stabbing his 64-year-old wife, Mary Kathleen Hill, during a brief 911 call on Sunday, November 9th. He allegedly went on to tell police that he committed the crime after a woman he met on a dating app threatened to release nude photos of him unless he paid her $15,000 in Apple gift cards. Police say Hill stabbed Mary in the chest with a kitchen knife inside their Upper Arlington home under the guise of giving her a massage before apologizing to her and holding her as she died. He also attempted to stab the family dog, but the animal escaped, according to court documents. After the killing, Hill allegedly deleted the compromising photos from his own computer and then stabbed himself in the chest in an attempt to take his own life. However, he survived after calling for help. Hill, a former Ohio State University music professor who taught from 1978 to 2015, was arrested and charged with premeditated aggravated murder. Students who knew Hill expressed shock at the news, especially since he was reportedly involved in an upcoming performance. One student told local media, quote, "There's no joy in performing knowing this information. Everyone was shocked. Nobody could have seen this coming." At the time of this recording, it appears the alleged scammer who attempted to extort Hill has not been identified, and authorities have not indicated whether Hill made any payment to her. The investigation into the online scheme is ongoing. Experts note that these kind of extortion cases have increased significantly across the US and the world in recent years, though normally it's the victims who end up harming themselves. Police say this is a rare and extreme example in which a victim harmed someone else. Mary Hill was pronounced dead at the crime scene. According to authorities, James Hill is expected to remain in custody as the case proceeds through court.
A 79-year-old Vietnam War veteran is being hailed as a hero after he shot and killed a violent, naked intruder at his property, one who allegedly broke into his Los Angeles home and attempted to attack his female tenant before he put himself in harm's way to bring the situation to an end. Police say the intruder, described only as a man in his 30s, arrived in LA's Studio City neighborhood around 7 a.m. on November 7th, abandoning his car, stripping naked, and wandering through the residential area while carrying what looked like a lawn sign attached to a pole. Security cameras captured him approaching multiple homes before forcing his way into a residence that belonged to 79-year-old Vietnam War veteran George Carcos. George was not initially aware of what had happened. Instead, after breaking in, the unidentified suspect went for his female tenant, a young woman named Chloe. It was when George heard Chloe's screams for help that he realized something was terribly wrong. Not wasting a moment, George rushed over and confronted the man. At first, he tried telling the intruder to leave and that police were on their way. However, without warning, the man lunged at George, causing him to collapse and fall to the ground. The impact shattered bones in both of his legs. And though George was armed, he was now pinned to the ground. He later said in an interview, quote, "I'm on my back, my legs collapsed. He's on top of me, and my arm with the gun is pinned behind my back. I knew that if I didn't take care of him, I had no clue what he was going to do or was capable of doing." Luckily, George managed to reach around with his other hand, grab his weapon, and shoot the intruder at point-blank range. He fired 3 rounds, the last of which was to the suspect's head. Police arrived not long after this and found the intruder dead at the scene. Officers also discovered discarded clothing and an abandoned vehicle nearby. An LAPD spokesperson said that the suspect's identity had not yet been confirmed as of November 12th, but investigators believe he may have been under the influence of drugs or suffering from a mental health crisis. Police say there was no indication the intruder knew anyone inside the home prior to the attack. George, meanwhile, suffered a number of serious injuries, including multiple fractures to both of his legs and one of his hips. He's expected to remain in hospital for at least another week, with his son telling reporters, quote, "He's got pins and rods up and down his legs, in his hip, in his femur, and his ankle." George's wife, who has late-stage Parkinson's disease and who relies on him as her primary caregiver, also witnessed the attack and has reportedly been left shaken by the whole thing. The family has since launched a GoFundMe campaign to cover medical expenses and in-home care. Despite his injuries, George says that he doesn't have any regrets, nor does he consider himself a hero. In an interview from his hospital bed, he told local media, quote, "It's a situation where I was fortunate enough to do the right thing." The investigation into the incident remains ongoing.
A 47-year-old Arizona man has been arrested and charged with first-degree murder after he allegedly killed his longtime girlfriend with a chainsaw, claiming she was possessed, before calling 911 to confess. Police say Jeffrey Real called dispatchers around 3:40 a.m. on Friday, November 7th, admitting he had killed his girlfriend, 31-year-old Paxton Wallace, inside their home near 23rd Avenue and Grant Street in Phoenix. When officers arrived, they found Real standing outside the home holding a hammer and a wooden cross. Inside the kitchen, officers discovered a blood-soaked chainsaw. And in the living room, they found Paxton's body, which had been disfigured beyond recognition. Investigators said Paxton's body showed extensive cutting-type injuries from a sharp-bladed instrument. Real allegedly told officers he used various tools, including the chainsaw, during what he claimed was a prolonged fight lasting up to 2 hours. Real stated that Paxton had attacked him and reached toward a corner of the kitchen where he believed she would grab a gun, though investigators found no firearm in the home. He also claimed she had a demon inside her, according to a probable cause statement. Detectives noted that Real later admitted he had consumed a large amount of cocaine before the killing. Paxton's family said they were shattered by the brutality of the murder. Her sister, Alita Wallace, told local media that while they knew Real had a criminal past, quote, "We never suspected he was capable of this kind of violence." She said Paxton had been trying to leave the relationship, but may not have shared the extent of what she was going through. Police say Real was taken to a hospital for evaluation before being booked into the Maricopa County Jail, where he is being held on a $1 million bond. Court records show Real has prior convictions for aggravated assault and aggravated DUI, along with multiple disciplinary issues during earlier prison terms. Paxton's loved ones are now planning her funeral, and a GoFundMe has been created to help cover expenses. Real is scheduled to appear in court for a preliminary hearing on November 17th. The investigation remains ongoing.
Authorities in Bergen County, New Jersey say that they dealt with quite the strange situation this week after an accused drunk driver carrying a large quantity of illegal drugs allegedly slammed into a parked car while behind the wheel of an iconic 80s vehicle. It all started around 12:20 p.m. on November 10th when an officer with the New Milford Police Department spotted the driver in question, 33-year-old Luke Randall, driving erratically while he was on patrol. Randall, who media reports have jokingly referred to as Marty McHigh for reasons that will become apparent in a moment, was easy to spot. He was driving a 1981 DeLorean DMC-12, the car famously featured in the Back to the Future trilogy. This made him all the more noticeable when he proceeded to crash into a parked 2023 Toyota at the side of the road. While thankfully no one was injured as a result of the crash, police quickly made a series of interesting discoveries inside Randall's DeLorean. And no, I'm not talking about a flux capacitor. Instead, officers found several bottles of vodka and 87 individually wrapped baggies of cocaine. It was also apparently clear that Randall himself was heavily under the influence. After being arrested, Randall was charged with a number of offenses, including DUI, careless driving, reckless driving, failure to possess insurance and registration, and driving without a license. But that's not all, though. You see, while the 33-year-old's vehicle may not have actually been capable of time travel, the whole situation was still a blast from the past for police. The very near past, as it turned out. According to reports, Randall was arrested just 1 week earlier, on November 3rd, for a similar DUI incident in which he was allegedly caught throwing objects from a moving vehicle. At the time of this recording, no further updates have been provided about the case, and it's unclear if Randall's legal team plans to try and blame Biff Tannen for his slew of driving offenses. However, one thing is for sure. Where he's going, he will not need roads.
Investigators in Illinois have released tragic new details in connection with the deaths of a Wisconsin couple this week, more than a month after they were found inside their own car just days before they were supposed to celebrate their first wedding anniversary. The situation began on October 6th when an officer in the city of Harvard noticed a vehicle with its hazard lights flashing along Route 14. When they went to investigate, they made an awful discovery. The vehicle's owners, 29-year-old Rachel and 30-year-old Brandon Dumovich, were both dead inside. Rachel was in the driver's seat, and Brandon was in the front passenger seat. The horrifying discovery devastated the couple's loved ones, especially because they had only recently started their lives together and were less than a week away from celebrating their first wedding anniversary. Reports describe Brandon and Rachel as middle school sweethearts who had known each other since the age of 12. After 15 years of friendship, they had started dating in 2022, after which things moved quickly. Brandon proposed in the summer of 2023 at Big Cedar Lake in Wisconsin, and the pair were married on October 12, 2024. At the time of their deaths, they were living in Sharon, Wisconsin. While very little information was released at the time of the couple's deaths, this week, authorities provided a gut-wrenching update. On November 13th, the Harvard Police Department announced that their joint investigation with the McHenry County Major Investigative Assistance Team and the McHenry County Coroner's Office determined that Brandon fatally shot Rachel before taking his own life. Despite the update, the news has provided little in the way of actual answers, though. We still have no idea why Brandon allegedly did what he did, or what happened in the lead-up to the shooting. In fact, just hours before the couple's deaths, Rachel appeared to be in good spirits, posting a photo on Facebook that appeared to reference their honeymoon that read, quote, "Forever chasing sunsets, wishing we were back in Greece." Rachel, a graduate of the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, worked in human resources. Brandon was a U.S. Navy veteran who had recently celebrated his 30th birthday and was working in the trades after leaving the service. So far, authorities have not disclosed any type of motive. Police continue to ask anyone with additional information to contact the Harvard Police Department or Crime Stoppers.
Authorities in Minnesota say that a 40-year-old factory worker has been arrested and charged this week after allegedly beating a 20-year-old coworker to death with a sledgehammer, a shocking early morning attack that investigators say he had been planning for some time. According to the Wright County Attorney's Office, David Bruce DeLong was taken into custody Monday, November 10th and charged with second-degree intentional murder after killing his colleague, Amber Check, at Advanced Process Technologies, a fabrication facility that works with the dairy industry in the city of Cokato. Police say that the attack happened around 6 a.m., with surveillance footage capturing DeLong leaving his workstation inside the plant, walking directly to Amber's work area, grabbing a sledgehammer and striking her in the head without warning. The 20-year-old immediately collapsed to the concrete floor. However, DeLong allegedly continued, hitting her at least 4 more times. After the attack, DeLong reportedly approached another employee and chillingly said, quote, "I hit her with your hammer. She is by your toolbox. She is gone." Officers found the blood-covered sledgehammer beside Amber, who died at the scene from blunt force trauma and blood loss. According to charging documents, DeLong admitted to investigators that he, quote, "didn't like Amber and had been planning to kill her." He apparently didn't offer any clear indication as to why, though, beyond telling authorities that she had, quote, "kind of given him a bad look and he was upset about that." That so-called bad look reportedly happened on a completely different day some time ago, and authorities said that there was no indication Amber was aware she was in danger. Amber, who lived in the city of Hutchinson, worked as a welder at the factory and was remembered by loved ones as an outgoing, hardworking young woman and a talented tradesperson. She discovered her passion for welding in high school and later graduated from Alexandria Technical and Community College in 2024 after completing its welding technology program. The killing has devastated the local community and forced a shutdown of production at Advanced Process Technologies. Administrative staff are working remotely while police continue their investigation. The company issued a statement saying, quote, "We are heartbroken by yesterday's tragedy, and our thoughts are with the victim's family and friends in this terrible moment. We're also making sure our employees have the support they need and working closely with law enforcement as they continue their investigation." Wright County Attorney Brian Lutz said he intends to present the case to a grand jury for a possible upgrade to first-degree premeditated murder, which carries a mandatory life sentence in Minnesota. Hey there. Before you take off, we'd just like to take a second and say that we really appreciate you sticking around to the end of the video. Luke and I are so grateful for our incredible Crime Zone community, so thank you for being a part of it. If you want to help Crime Zone continue to grow, one of the easiest things you can do is leave a like on this video and consider subscribing. Be sure to hit that notification bell as well and select all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to support the channel, there are a couple of options. We've got a thriving community over on Patreon, where you can get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. Head over to patreon.com/crimezone to learn more and to meet some of the awesome people whose names are currently on screen. If that isn't your thing, we've also now launched channel memberships so you can join directly here on YouTube. Channel members get a lot of the same perks as on Patreon, including extra content, without the added hassle of having to go off-platform. Now, that being said, we know times are tough and that not everyone is able to support financially. Regardless of your situation though, we want you to know that we truly appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much, and we hope to see you soon.